Well, thankfully, Chantal, you said a lot of the things I might have said. So I'm really going to get to do what I wanted to do anyway, which is stand in some new and more vulnerable place than I ever have before. The talk I'm going to give tonight is not the talk I thought I might give when Amy and Chantal asked me to participate in this in the spring. A few weeks ago, I talked to Chantal, and she said, and I said, well, I've got lots I could talk about. I've been doing this work for 12 years. I know so much about women in leadership. And Chantal said, well, you know, really, just your leadership edge. Like, what's your unique leadership edge? What's your most vulnerable place right now? And, okay, but over here, I have almost 2.5 decades. That's a lot, maybe a lot more time than some of you even have been alive, studying leadership. And 15 years as a management consultant and doing that leadership work in the 90s, where we were kind of starting to break down the big masculine patriarchal model of this heavy behemoth of a way of leading. And then 12 years working with women's leadership. Like, what does it really mean for us to emerge as women now, bringing all of who we are into the world? Well, I know some things. Okay, well. But over here, my own unique leadership edge. Well, you talked about vulnerability, Chantal, and I would say for myself then, and this is where I'm going to speak from, it is more like a leadership cliff right now. And it's been that way since January, when a tragedy happened in my life and swept me from the life I had into this life that is emerging here now, today, still. All the things I know over here, I've been teaching with working with wonderful women and watched amazing women go through these transformations. And I've been going through them myself, but then, in January, I was invited by life itself to test drive everything that I knew here, like on a moonscape with no oxygen and a lot of heat. And that's what I want to share. I want to share with you tonight what I know from here, from this place. In January, I arrived home to find my husband dead suddenly. And I released him, my beloved partner. And then I released the future I had with him, the future I'm growing old together with him. And then I released my home and my beautiful sanctuary property on Vashon Island. And then I released the community that I had spent 13 years being a part of on Vashon. And then I released my beloved cat, Emma, who, 17 years old, she died 3 days before I left my home. So that is to say, on this leadership cliff, it was sort of like life said, all right, let's try this out. Let's see. This was anyway the invitation. Let's see how this holds what you know to be true. And what I can say is that throughout it all, what I'll call my center has held. And my center is the connection that I have been cultivating through many, many years to the ground of my deep feminine being. This is what you were talking about. It held. It held, like sometimes I have the image of, you may have seen the images in the Hurricane Sandy on the East Coast when everything was devastated. Do you remember that picture in the graveyard where all the graves were smashed and all the houses all around it, and one thing remained? Do you remember what it was, if you saw it? Anybody? The Virgin Mary. The statue of the Virgin Mary was just like there. Wow. That's what it was like. That's what it is like for me. And that it remained. And so even though I always believed everything I was teaching over here, and then that I know, and I'd love to tell you about sometime, but to have everything at stake, I am here tonight to say it truly does make a difference. So from this ground of being, I was able to navigate through an impossible situation. And I would say, I in a way, I became the leader that, at another level than that I had been teaching about here, that required me to bring together all of my feminine and all of my masculine capacities and forge a path that was true. And a lot of the time, and in many instances, when the press of the world and the structures around the world wanted fast decisions, wanted me to do it this way, were sort of the drive, I would say, of the masculine. And to hold and move when I knew what was right, when I had listened fully to all my body wisdom and my emotional wisdom, and I talked and connected. And then when I made a decision, it was powerful. Okay. So this is my stepping out, in a way, tonight, is to talk from this place over here. To say that this way of being, this emerging way of being, we must cultivate if we are going to be able to be in the center of all that life will throw at us. And I'm here to say that this way of being that includes all of who we are is up to the task of today. I'm kind of did this like advanced leadership program myself, which I do not recommend anyone else take on. I like to think that I just did it for lots of other people so that I could speak from this place of confidence when I say we are being, I am being called forth. And it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. And I don't think, for me, I can't imagine what could have been worse or what could be worse. In the end, it's either a fire of transformation or it's a fire of decimation. And I think you have some beautiful things here. To come into being through transformation, emerge, to rise or come into being, that our doing can arise, a new quality of doing from this deep, deep well of being. But we have to go toward the well of being. There's been this kind of, the enthusiasm around women in leadership, which I've loved, because when I started doing this, it wasn't even a conversation that people wanted to have. Which is why, by the way, from the very first program we did, we embedded it in universities. We've always had our programs in university. I was not going to have this conversation be ghettoized, somewhere over here, goddess work, that we are in fact working with the rise of the cosmic feminine, the divine feminine essence, but it needs to come into partnership with our masculine nature so that it can translate into the world. We need to be in the world. And as you were alluding to, Chantal, it's our research that we've been doing now and that we write about in the book is to say that this isn't just about women getting a few new leadership skills that we're putting on top of an outdated operating system. A few new feminine skills, let's say. Even feminine ways of being. That I believe what we're looking at here is an upgrade. This will work for the Amazon and Microsoft groups. An upgrade in the internal operating system. The old one isn't up to the task. It was fine for 5,000 years, which, by the way, is how long the masculine model has been dominant. So we can see we got a way to go here. So that operating system that was cultivated inside that paradigm worked for then, but it is insufficient for now. In other words, I believe we are being asked to make an evolutionary move. This is like those moments in history when an evolution never happens just haphazardly. It happens because the complexity of the time calls forth a new way of being, and we're drawn out up to that way of being. So that's what we're talking about. Is like we're actually being asked to lead the species in an evolutionary move forward that calls on all of our innate ways of knowing, all of the body wisdom, the emotional wisdom, the mental wisdom, and the spiritual wisdom. This is what we're being asked to do. What I know to be true now, without a shadow of a doubt, is that a profoundly new way of being, what we call the mysterial way of being, is being called forth now. In me, in you, in us as women. It's literally being pulled out of us right now. And the way that we know that is all these little cracks are starting to form in the structure around us. But if we don't know what's happening, we look at that and we say, oh, we gotta patch that up. I need to, we paint over the cracks. We don't share our failures and our disappointments and our woundedness and our struggles. We want to be the superwoman out there. But if we knew there was a little chick, a cool chick, pecking away in there, would we do that? No, we wouldn't do that. We would create the conditions, heat lamps, and little, cotton balls. We'd say, hey, come on out. So my message tonight is to say, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's Leonard Cohen's line. And that's how we come out. So the invitation, I say to you, I'm standing here in my own naked edge, is to ask yourself, what is cracking you open right now? And what if that is an ally inviting you to be more of yourself? Who are you becoming? Thank you.